guys, it's the Wee Baker here, also known as Richard. Well, I should say Richard, also known as the Wee Baker, but yeah, hey. Um, so today, I feel as though it's the right time to revisit my story and tell you guys how I got to where I am today. Sorry, I've got bullet points on my computer that I'm going to be looking at, and a lot of you know how I got into baking, but a lot of you probably don't know the events that led up to the reason why I got into baking. So around 7 years ago, I started getting some symptoms of realizing that something was wrong. I was starting to get pins and needles down my arms and shoulders, and also after walking for a while, I would start to get numbness in my legs, which would then lead to me not being able to walk. I would have to sit down and take a break. So all this led me to believe that something was wrong. And with people with dwarfism, a common issue is spinal stenosis, which is pressure on the spinal cord. And that pressure on the spinal cord affects the nerves, which then causes the pins and needles. So I went to my doctor and got an MRI scan done, or multiple MRI scans done, to find out what was going on. And I knew that I needed to get multiple opinions on what was going on because it was pretty bad. And there's not really a centre of excellence for people with spinal stenosis or people with dwarfism, because it's quite a difficult procedure of knowing where to go next. And got opinions from people in Scotland, opinions from people in America, Baltimore, and also from people down in England. And the one that I felt most comfortable with and most happy with, that I felt confident with his bedside manner and also like his knowledge, was a surgeon down in Leeds. So yeah, we got it all booked up, and we went down to Leeds, and yeah, I don't remember much of the days leading up to the surgery or the day of the surgery at all. All I remember is like waiting for a bed to come up, and yeah, like just waiting for a bed and getting blood tests done just in case something went wrong. So yeah, I went into the hospital. I was getting surgery done on between C6 and T1, if I remember right. So that's the C6 to T1 vertebrae from the base of your neck down to the first thoracic vertebra. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes again. I remember the moment leading up to being put to sleep, and before that being told about like the dangers of the surgery, that I could be going paralyzed, and I was just thinking, yeah, I'm not worried, like that won't happen to me, like it's a small chance and I'll be fine. Nothing's ever bad has really happened to me. Like, I don't know my blood type. I've never broken an arm, never been in hospital before this stage. So I was just like, yeah, everything's gonna be fine. And how wrong was I? So I woke up from the surgery, and all I can remember is the colour blue. I was surrounded by people with blue aprons on, like nurses and surgeons, but none of them knew what was going on. Like, none of them knew that I was paralysed. Only I knew. And I just said, I can't feel anything. I can't move anything. And then people started freaking out a bit, but at the time, I was never scared. I never felt an ounce of worry or anything like that at that moment, because A, I didn't believe it was happening to me, and B, I kind of thought that I would get better. Like, I just had a feeling that I would be fine. And I don't know. It's a real. People always ask me, "Were you scared?" And I always say no. But I feel as I must have been at some point. But yeah, at that time I wasn't scared, and I remember asking to see my parents and seeing them come in and having the surgeons tell them what was going on, and seeing the look on my parents' face. That was a pretty tough time. That was a moment where I realized that um, the next few months is going to be tough. Um, yeah, that was probably the hardest part of that day, was seeing my parents' face. And um, then the next thing I did was pretty stupid looking back on it. I asked my dad to phone up my university supervisor at the time to explain to him why I wouldn't be coming back um, for the next semester. And I remember my dad typing in the number and then holding it up to my ear because I couldn't move anything and all I could do was talk. So he held it and I talked, and I explained the situation to him. And he was like, right, okay, that's fine. And then, yeah, I don't know why I did that. My main focus at the time was university, which is silly looking back. I'm like, why? Why did I do that? Um, so yeah, the during this time, the surgeons were like figuring out what to do with me and whether to do more surgery on me to relieve the the pressure on my spinal cord, because the stroke had caused a lot of swelling to occur throughout my whole spinal cord. And um, they were like, if you don't get any movement back soon, we're going to have to take you back in for surgery, but this time you're going to be awake. And I was like, oh, fun. So, yeah, I was like, there's no way that's happening. And then a couple of hours later, like after a bit of the pressure on my spinal cord, some of the swelling relieved, I got movement back in my right arm, just a little tiny bit, but it was enough for them to be like, no, we're not doing any more surgery on you. And that was a big sigh of relief from everybody. Um, and then from then, I got moved to ICU, and ICU was a really weird experience because I was the only patient awake in ICU. I was the only one that could talk to the nurses and doctors, and they loved it. They loved being able to talk to a patient and just um, like have somebody to talk to, and um, they were all very caring. I remember them being so amazing to me, and it was the run up to Christmas. So yeah, and a few days after that, the reason why I was in ICU was because my breathing was bad. My blood oxygen percentage wasn't high enough, and I was having trouble just breathing for myself. Um, so I spent a good few days in ICU before being moved to the general ward, and this is the first time I cried. I think I cried because I wasn't going to be getting 24/7 nurses' attention, and I felt as though I needed that because I was getting fed by nurses and also my parents were feeding me, and they were going to move me to a ward where I wasn't going to be getting 24/7 care, and my family could only visit me between like 6 and 8 or something. So I got moved up, um, instantly started freaking out. I was like, there's no way I can do this. And I couldn't even press the buzzer to ask for attention. Like, if I needed something or needed moved or wanted a drink or something, I couldn't press the button. So that took a bit of finagling to figure out how we were gonna get me to press the button. What happened in this ward? Like, I wasn't getting rehab at this time. I was still very much in the um, just making sure that I wasn't going to slump back to some like a worse state. and also just being close to the surgeon, making sure that everything was okay. And I don't really remember much of the ward. I remember the one thing I do remember, and I'll always remember this, is because I couldn't use my TV because of my hands. I couldn't hold it or do anything with it. I was looking over at my neighbor's bed. I was like, and he had his TV all set up, and I just started watching it because I was bored, and didn't do anything else, and I was socially awkward, so I didn't talk to anybody either. So I was like looking over, and he realized that I was looking at his screen, and without even saying anything, he just turned the subtitles on and tilted the screen a little bit more so that I could see. And he probably doesn't realize how much that meant to me, and that I still remember it, and I will always remember it. And yeah, hey Adam, you really helped for those couple of weeks that we spent a war together. Um, so I spent Christmas in the hospital, and it was probably one of the best Christmases I've had, because it was just me and my family, like my two sisters, my mum and dad, just around my bed, and we were talking and laughing, and the rest of the ward was empty, so we had like this whole ward to myself, and they allowed us to spend most of the day together, and it was just lovely. It was a nice time. It wasn't the best of circumstances, obviously, but it was just a nice time together, and yeah, I will remember that for a while as well. And I missed out a big something that happened. A couple of days after I arrived at the ward, a specialist came to see me to see how I was doing, and to basically I don't know why he was there, because basically all he said to me was, you're going to want to reconsider your career path, because you will never be able to use your hands again, and you will never be able to have a career in which hands are a major part of it. And I was thinking, shit, like my whole life I've made stuff. I made models, I made Lego, I made things with my dad, I made stuff for my university projects and design projects, and for him to tell me that was so heartbreaking. But what I was thinking at the time was, fuck you. I'm going to use my hands again. I don't care what you think. This is what's going to happen. I am going to use my hands again, and I'm going to make something of myself, and you're not going to tell me otherwise. After Christmas, I got moved to rehabilitation, where I got 1 hour of physio and 1 hour of occupational therapy a day. The physio was all about trying to sit up at first, and then moving on to walking. But there was a long period in between this. Like, I was in this rehab for a month and 10 days, and in this month and 10 days I went from bedridden to sitting up in a wheelchair to being able to pick myself up from a lying down position to standing up and then taking one step. But all these stages took such a long time to manage. Like, I lost 2 stone in muscle mass from all the lying down I was doing and the lack of movement. So once I was sitting up by myself, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that I would gain some sort of mobility back, and I always had this feeling that I was going to walk again because I'm a competitive little shit and I always want to outdo myself. So if somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm more than likely going to try and do it. So I practiced every day with physio, standing up, and then walking. Like just putting one step in front of the other. Like we're talking like baby steps. We're talking me standing up in a Zimmer frame and then putting a couple of steps in front of each other, and then walking back and sitting down, and that was me done for the day. Like finito. Like no more walking for that day because I was exhausted. And then in the afternoon, we'll be doing occupational therapy, which was all about me learning how to feed myself again, how to pick up blocks and put blocks down, and just how to like get just gaining some function back in my hands, which I knew was going to be the hardest part of it. Like the walking, I knew would come back at some point, but my hands, they were just, they weren't they weren't the best, and they still aren't the best. But I'm making good with what I have. So all this time, I'm still in England, trying to be close to my surgeon, and the surgeon came in to visit me to see how I was getting on and to like talk about what we're going to do in the future. And I told him that I was walking, and the look on his face when I said that I had been walking, I knew that he never thought that I would walk again, and he was so relieved to have me back on my feet. So I got moved back from I got moved from England back up to Scotland, to the spinal unit here in Glasgow, and this is where the rehab really started to ramp up. I heard that Scottish rehab was a lot more intense than English rehab, um, which I was dying for. I was like, I couldn't wait. I was doing like little bits and pieces out with physio, like doing my transfers by myself and like trying to like just get my strength back in any way I could out of physio when I was down in England. But when I got moved back up to Scotland, the physio was way more harder, which is what I wanted. And the first day that I got there, they did a walking test. Like they didn't, they down in England they kind of like slowed down everything, but up in Scotland as soon as they got there they were like, right, we're walking, we don't care, you're walking. And then so they did a 6 minute walking test with me, and in that 6 minutes I walked 42 meters. So 42 meters in 6 minutes, so 7 minutes per minute, which is, it's crazy looking back. And during my time, like I spent a month in Glasgow in spinal unit, and during that time I learned to walk with a crutch, walk with a Zimmer frame, then walk with two crutches, then walk with one crutch. And then on my last day we did the 6 minute test again, and I walked 400 meters I think. And during that walking test I threw my crutch down to one side, and I even broke into a jog because I just wanted to get a really good distance for nobody other than myself. Like that was it. And I got released the next day. It was a planned release, and I knew I was getting out then because they knew that I could look after myself. And but I still had a long way to go, and I managed to get out with no crutches, and I used my wheelchair as the item to transport all my clothing and all the crap that I had plied up in the 4 months I was in hospital. I used it to transport that stuff and not transport me, which was my goal. That was how I wanted to leave that place. There's a long gap between me being released from hospital and me starting to bake. There was around a 3 year gap, and this gap was me, I fell into a terribly depressed state. Um, I I kind of gave up, um, which was the worst thing to do after putting so much effort in. I gave up, and um, I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew that I had to go back to university and finish off my degree, which I did. I managed to go back the next semester and finish off everything and graduate with a first class honours in mechanical engineering, was which was pretty good. But I wasn't from what I came from. That was the easy part, getting my masters, and then from then I wanted to get. I didn't know what I knew that I couldn't do a job. I couldn't do a full-time job because I didn't have the energy to do it, or the like or the function back, because I was still I couldn't walk far. I still can't walk far. I couldn't use my hands much at all still. So I decided to do a PhD, as I knew that I could do my own working hours and figure out when I wanted to work and when I was too tired to work. And I got offered the prosthetic limb one here in Glasgow, and I took it, and um, it was treating me well until like a year and a half in, when I was realizing that my health and my body was holding me back from being able to do stuff. I wasn't able to make my prosthetic legs that I had designed, and I'm quite a proud guy in the fact that I always want to do stuff from start to finish. I want to design it, and then I want to make it, and then I want to present it to people. And I was designing it fine, but when I couldn't make it, I didn't have the strength in my hands to make my feet, which killed me in a sense. It just demotivated me completely. And I felt at a loss, and I wanted to create something that I had made from start to finish. And the only thing that I didn't get into anything else like making models again, or Lego, or like doing pottery or any of that, because my house is small and I didn't want it getting filled up with the stuff I made. So I knew that I wanted to make something that I could either give away or dispose of by eating. And my dad has been baking for as long as I can remember, and he was like, "Why don't you bake some bread?" And I baked my first loaf of bread because I could read the recipe, follow the instructions, I could knead, I could then bake it and then eat it. And seeing that first loaf, I was hooked. I knew I'd found what I wanted to do, and I couldn't stop. And I then started to realize how much it improved my mental health, and how much it improved the strength in my upper body as well. Like, kneading is so tiring, but it's totally worth it as my shoulders start to get bigger and my arms start to get bigger. And yeah, just the process of baking has it's changed my life, and it might have even saved my life for a number of reasons. And that is why I'm wanting to teach other people how to bake and give back to the spinal injured community in some way, because I know that a lot can change and a lot can be made better. And I think that baking might be one of the ways of going about it. So yeah, I'm the Wee Baker, and that was my story of how I became the Wee Baker. If you have any questions or comments, or you would like to know more, then please leave a comment in the comment section, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram or on my Facebook. I would love to hear from you guys. Yeah, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.